Watchman Tales. Some houses breathe, but this one remembers. Every step, every scream.
The year is 2026. At the Large Hadron Collider in CERN, a brilliant but disgraced physicist, Dr. Eris Thorne, is conducting a forbidden experiment. He's trying to create a quantum singularity, a microscopic black hole to explore a new dimension. His colleagues dismissed it as scientific heresy, a dangerous fool's errand. But Eris, driven by a deep, unwavering conviction, believed he was on the cusp of a revolutionary discovery. His experiment, conducted in secret, went horribly wrong. He didn't create a black hole. He created a tear in reality, a momentary rip in the fabric of space-time. And through it, something slipped through. It was a quantum parasite, a being of pure energy, a creature that existed in a state of superposition, a parasitic entity that fed on probability itself. The first sign of the parasite's presence was a series of bizarre, impossible events. A coffee mug would vanish from his desk and reappear, shattered on the floor. His car, which he had parked a block away, would suddenly be in the parking lot, its engine running. The probabilities of these events were astronomically low, yet they were happening, as if a cosmic dice roller was rigging the game. Dr. Thorne, a man of logic and reason, was terrified. He realized the parasite was not a physical being. It was a conceptual one, a creature that could manipulate reality by collapsing 100 different probabilities into a single, terrifying outcome. It was not just an entity. It was a probability predator. The parasite's attacks grew bolder. It began to target his personal reality. He would receive text messages from his deceased wife, her words filled with a chilling, mournful sadness. He would see brief, horrifying glimpses of himself in 100 different timelines. A timeline where he had succeeded, a timeline where he was a beggar, a timeline where he had never been born. The parasite was showing him 100 different realities. And his mind, unable to cope with the sheer volume of information, was beginning to unravel. The parasite was not just feeding on probability, it was feeding on his sanity, his mind, and his very existence. One night, the parasite manifested itself. It was not a physical being, but a shifting, shimmering entity of pure energy, a pulsating vortex of light and darkness that appeared in the center of his lab. The parasite spoke to him, not through words, but through a series of flashing images and fragmented sounds. A message that spoke of 1,000 different realities, of 100 different outcomes, of 1,000,000 different possibilities. The parasite was not here to kill him. It was here to absorb him, to make him a part of its own quantum consciousness, to add his reality to its vast, terrifying collection. Dr. Thorne, a man who had sought to master time and space, was about to be devoured by a creature that existed outside of both. His last entry in his research journal was a frantic, incoherent scrawl. He described the parasite as a hunter of possibilities, a creature that existed in every moment, in every timeline, a horrifying testament to his hubris. The next morning, his lab was found completely empty. The only thing left, a single strange mark on the floor. a symbol that resembled a pair of dice, one of which was broken, its numbers a chaotic, jumbled mess. He was never seen again. The quantum parasite of the CERN Supercollider remains, a silent, unseen predator, forever searching for its next meal, its next reality to consume, its next victim to absorb into its vast, terrifying consciousness. This chilling story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a former colleague of Dr. Thorne, who claims to have recently received a strange garbled text message from their own number. Now, let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by
The Cursed Arcade Cabinet of the Crimson Knight. In the dimly lit back room of an old, abandoned arcade sat a single, forgotten cabinet. Its game, the Crimson Knight, was a local legend, a game so difficult and so strange that no one had ever beaten it. Whispers spoke of the game being haunted, a cursed object that would drive players to madness, its final boss a terrifying, impossible entity. For a group of 4 friends, all hardcore gamers and urban explorers, it was the ultimate challenge. They broke into the arcade, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of their headlamps, their laughter echoing in the vast, empty space. They were about to discover that the legend was not a legend. It was a terrifying digital reality. They powered on the machine, and the old flickering screen came to life, its graphics a bizarre mix of 8-bit characters and grotesque, detailed monsters. The game was difficult, a brutal, unforgiving gauntlet of monsters and traps. But the horror was not in the game, it was in the game's glitches. The game would momentarily freeze, its screen a wash of static, and in it they would see a strange, distorted image of themselves, their faces contorted in a silent scream. Then the game would continue, but a new, unsettling element would be added. A pixelated, red-eyed creature would appear on the screen, a creature that was not part of the original game, a creature that would mimic their movements, a stalker that would follow them through every level. The creature's attacks grew bolder. It began to appear in the real world. One of the friends, a young woman named Chloe, screamed, pointing to a reflection in the glass of the arcade cabinet. It was the red-eyed creature, a monstrous, pixelated figure standing right behind them. But when they turned, there was nothing there. The creature was a digital ghost, a manifestation of the game's corrupted code, and it was now haunting their reality. The game was not just a game. It was a trap, a portal between worlds, and the creature was its guardian, a digital predator that fed on human fear and madness. The climax of the game was a single terrifying level, a pitch-black labyrinth, its walls lined with the silent, pixelated forms of other gamers who had tried and failed to beat the game, their faces frozen in a silent, unblinking horror. At the center of the labyrinth, the final boss appeared. It was not a monster or a knight, but a distorted, pixelated version of themselves, a monstrous reflection of their own fears and insecurities. The creature, the Crimson Knight, was not a boss. It was the game's consciousness, a living entity that had been waiting for them, feeding on their fear, their rage, their despair. Their final video log, recovered weeks later from a hidden camera, was a horrifying descent into pure madness. The footage showed the friends, their faces pale with terror, their eyes wide with a profound, soul-shattering horror. They were no longer playing the game. The game was playing them, their movements controlled by an unseen force. The final frames were of the arcade cabinet screen, its old flickering display showing a final triumphant image of the red-eyed creature, its pixelated form consuming their own, their silent screams a haunting testament to their demise. They were never seen again. The cursed arcade cabinet remains, a silent, dark sentinel, its screen glowing with a faint, pulsing red light, waiting for its next victims, its next meal, its next soul to consume. This chilling story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a former friend of the group who now refuses to touch any video game, no matter how innocent. Now, let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by
The old fun house at the state fair was a local legend. Its centerpiece was the mirror maze, a labyrinth of reflections and illusions that was said to be cursed. Locals spoke of a doppelgänger, a malevolent entity that lived in the mirrors, a creature that would steal a person's reflection and replace it with a horrifying, distorted version of themselves. For a young, skeptical journalist, a woman named Emily, it was the perfect subject for a Halloween expose. She entered the maze alone, her camera ready to capture every reflection, every illusion. She was about to discover that the legend was not a legend, it was a terrifying, living truth. The maze was a dizzying, disorienting experience, its endless corridors of glass and light a visual assault on her senses. She saw herself everywhere, her reflection distorted, elongated, or compressed into a funhouse mirror of her own insecurities. But then a subtle change occurred. In one of the mirrors, her reflection was not a reflection. It was a perfect, unblinking copy of herself, a cold, empty version of her, its eyes a vacant, unfeeling black. Emily, a rational woman, dismissed it as a trick of the light, an illusion. But the reflection moved on its own, its movements a half-second behind her own moves, a terrifying echo of her every move. The doppelganger's attacks grew bolder. It began to manifest in every mirror, its cold, unblinking eyes staring at her from every angle. It would mimic her expressions, her gestures, but with a horrifying, malevolent twist. Her smile would be a grotesque, unnatural rictus, her laughter a silent, unfeeling scream. The doppelganger was not just a reflection, it was a sentient being, a creature that was slowly, methodically, and maliciously stealing her identity. She felt herself fading, her memories dissolving, her own sense of self dissolving into a vast, empty void. The doppelganger was not just a monster, it was a parasite, a creature that fed on identity, a creature that would consume her essence and replace her with a horrifying, distorted version of herself.
The climax of her journey was a single, terrifying moment. She found herself in a central chamber, a vast, circular room lined with 1,000 mirrors. The Doppelgänger appeared in every mirror, a chorus of 1,000 different versions of her, each one a silent, unblinking witness to her demise. The Doppelgänger spoke to her, not through words, but through a series of flashing images and fragmented sounds, a message that spoke of her deepest fears and her greatest regrets. The Doppelgänger was not just a reflection, it was a judge, a jury, and an executioner. A being that would show her 100 different versions of her life, 100 failures, 100 regrets. And with every flash, with every image, she felt herself fading, her own sense of self dissolving into a vast, empty void. The camera, found in the center of the mirror maze, contained a final, horrifying video log. The footage showed her, her face pale with terror, her eyes wide with a profound, soul-shattering horror. She was no longer a person, she was a ghost, a reflection of a memory, a silent, unblinking witness to her demise. The final frames were of the camera's lens, which showed a perfect, unblinking reflection of the Doppelgänger, its cold, empty eyes staring into the void, its face a horrifying, distorted version of her own face. She was never seen again. The mirror maze remains, a silent, dark sentinel, its mirrors waiting, ever hungry for its next victim, its next identity to steal, its next soul to consume. This chilling story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a former colleague of Emily's who now refuses to look in any mirror, no matter how small. Now, let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by The old observatory, perched on a lonely mountain peak, was a place of local legend. It was said that the giant rusting telescope, a relic of a bygone era, was cursed. Locals spoke of a whispering void, a cosmic entity that lived in the darkness between the stars, a creature that would whisper secrets to those who dared to look through the telescope. The whispers were said to be a portent of madness, a silent warning of a terrible fate to come. For a young, ambitious astronomer, a man named Leo, it was the perfect place to test his own theories. He was not a believer in the paranormal. He was a scientist, a man who believed every mystery could be explained by logic and reason. He entered the observatory alone, his face illuminated by the eerie glow of his laptop, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension. He set up his gear, a high-end camera and a series of cosmic radiation detectors. He pointed the telescope at a starless patch of sky, a dark, empty void that was said to be the home of the Whispering Void. The camera, which was designed to capture light, was a complete blank, but the radiation detectors, which were supposed to be silent, began to shriek, their needles jumping into the red. They were picking up an impossible amount of energy, a strange, pulsing radiation that was not from this world. Then the whispers began. They were soft at first, a gentle cosmic hum that seemed to come from the very air itself. The whispers were not a language, they were a feeling of 1,000 different stars dying, 1,000 different planets being born, 1,000 different cosmic events happening all at once. The whispering void was not a creature, it was a cosmic consciousness, a living, breathing entity that existed outside of time and space. Leo, mesmerized by the hypnotic hum, felt a strange sense of euphoria, a feeling of being connected to something ancient and powerful. He felt his mind being stretched, his perception of reality unraveling. He was no longer just seeing a starless patch of sky. He was seeing the universe as it truly was, a vast, cold, empty space filled with silent, hungry gods that existed in a state of eternal cosmic hunger. The whispers were no longer just a hum. They were a voice, a monstrous, unified sound that spoke to him in a language that was not human. It was the whispering void speaking, a chorus of 1,000 voices, a single, unified consciousness. It was telling him that he was now a part of it, a new soul in its vast, incomprehensible body. He was not just a witness, he was a victim, a meal for a creature that fed on the very essence of human consciousness. His final transmission was a jumbled, incoherent mess. His last words were a stream of cosmic poetry and horrifying gibberish, his mind irrevocably shattered by the terrifying truth. His equipment was found the next day, scattered around the observatory, its components melted and fused into strange, impossibly complex shapes. He was never seen again. The whispering void of the abandoned observatory remains, a silent cosmic monument to the young astronomer who dared to look too deeply into the abyss. For the abyss, it seems, can look back. This chilling story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a former colleague of Leo, who now suffers from a debilitating fear of the dark and the vastness of the night sky. Now, let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by
The deep woods, a vast, uninhabited expanse of ancient trees and winding rivers, was a place of local legend. Locals spoke of a humanoid anomaly, a creature that was not human, but looked like one, a being that would mimic human behavior and lure travelers into the woods, never to return. For a young, adventurous couple, both avid hikers, it was the perfect place to spend a weekend, a chance to escape the noise and chaos of the city. They were not believers in urban legends. They were just two people, a man and a woman, looking for a quiet, peaceful hike. They were about to discover that some legends are not legends at all. The hike started with a series of beautiful, peaceful moments, but as they delved deeper into the woods, the air grew thick with a strange, earthy aroma, and the usual sounds of the forest faded, replaced by a profound, pervasive silence.
Then they saw it. A humanoid figure, a man in a tattered jacket, standing in the middle of a clearing, his back to them. The figure didn't move, it didn't speak, it just stood there, a silent, unblinking sentinel in the middle of the woods. The couple, initially confused, tried to approach it, to see if it needed help. But as they got closer, they saw it. The figure's face was not a face. It was a blank, featureless mask of white flesh, a smooth, unblinking surface with a single black hole for a mouth. It was the humanoid anomaly, and it was here to hunt. The creature began to move, its movements a strange, jerky imitations of a human's walk. It would mimic their words, their laughter, but with a horrifying, malevolent twist. Its laughter was a silent, unfeeling gasp. Its words a stream of incomprehensible, guttural sounds. The creature was not a monster. It was a mimic, a predator that fed on human behavior, on human emotion. It was trying to lure them, to make them feel safe, to make them feel like they were in control. But they were not in control. They were its prey, its next meal, its soul to consume. The terror peaked one night when they found themselves trapped in a small, cramped cave, the creature standing outside, its black, empty face pressed against the entrance, its voice a perfect, haunting imitation of their own. It was a predator, a being that fed on human fear and human despair. The last thing they saw before their own consciousness began to fade was the creature's face, its black, empty face pressed against the cave's entrance, its silent, unblinking eyes staring into the void. They were never seen again. The humanoid anomaly of the deep woods remains, a silent, unseen predator, forever searching for its next meal, its next victim to consume, its next soul to absorb into its vast, terrifying consciousness. This chilling story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a park ranger who found the couple's abandoned camp, and to this day, he says he can still hear a faint, distant whisper on the wind, a silent, unblinking warning to those who dare to venture too far into the woods. Now, let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by
The tomb was a place of local legend, a forgotten crypt that was said to be cursed. Locals spoke of a cursed artifact, a small, intricately carved box that was said to contain the spirit of an ancient demon, a creature that would whisper secrets to those who dared to open the box. For a young, ambitious archaeologist, a woman named Dr. Anya Sharma, it was the perfect subject for her research. She was not a believer in the paranormal. She was a scientist, a woman who believed every mystery could be explained by logic and reason. She entered the tomb alone, her face illuminated by the eerie glow of her headlamp, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension. She found the box in the center of the tomb, a small, black, and intricately carved box that was a testament to the skill of a forgotten artisan. She opened it, her hands trembling with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The box was empty. But then a faint, ethereal whisper filled the tomb, a sound that seemed to come from the very air itself. The whispers were not a language, they were a feeling of 1,000 different souls screaming in unison, 1,000 different lives being lived all at once. The cursed artifact was not an artifact, it was a portal, a gateway to 1,000 different dimensions, and the creature that lived inside it was not a demon. It was a soul eater, a creature that fed on human consciousness, on human fear, on human despair. Dr. Sharma, mesmerized by the hypnotic whispers, felt a strange sense of euphoria, a feeling of being connected to something ancient and powerful. She felt her mind being stretched, her perception of reality unraveling. She was no longer just in a tomb. She was in 1,000 different places, 1,000 different timelines, 1,000 different realities. The whispers were no longer just a hum. They were a voice, a monstrous unified sound that spoke to her in a language that was not human. It was the Soul Eater, a chorus of 1,000 voices, a single, unified consciousness. It was telling her that she was now part of it, a new soul in its vast, incomprehensible body. She was not just a witness, she was a victim, a meal for a creature that fed on the very essence of human consciousness. Dr. Sharma's final audio recording was a jumbled, incoherent mess. Her last words were a stream of cosmic poetry and horrifying gibberish, her mind irrevocably shattered by the terrifying truth. Her equipment was found the next day, scattered around the tomb, its components melted and fused into strange, impossibly complex shapes. She was never seen again. The cursed artifact of the ancient tomb remains, a silent, dark sentinel, its lid open, its interior a vast, starless void, its whispers waiting, ever hungry for its next victim, its next soul to consume. This chilling story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a former colleague of Dr. Sharma, who now suffers from a debilitating fear of ancient artifacts and the vastness of the night sky. Which of these stories gave you chills tonight? Let us know in the comments, and remember, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Watchman Tales, or something may be watching you right now. Sleep well if you can.